Hi, guys. Good morning. I hope you're able to hear me.
Yes, Bhaskar.
Yeah, perfect. So let me give my introductions. There are few new people are there. So the major sessions that we are going to see from today, the main sessions of the Azure Data Engineering. So this is Bhaskar. I'm having 14 plus years of IT experience, and my career was started with MSBI, which is having full stack of MSBI, SSIS, SSRS, and SSIS. So later I worked for Microsoft more 8 years from two different vendors. And there I adopted the new technologies like Azure Data Factory, Azure Databricks, and all cloud related services that we started working on it. And currently I'm working for one of the Indian based company as a senior data engineer. So this is briefly about me. Okay, so like whatever we discussed till previous sessions, that is DP 900, which is only basics of the data processing. But data processing, that is DP 700 or DP 203 is going to start from today. So whatever we are going to say from today, that is very, very important. So the main sessions are starting from now. And you have to make sure to practice on every day and without fail. In order to do this, all this practice, we required an account. I'll talk about later how we can set up the account. But as a data engineer, what we are going to do it? We are going to provide the solution for your big data. We are going to provide a solution for big data. So what does it mean by big data? If your system is not capable enough to provide the solution for some data, so that data we can treat as a big data. Okay, so that size may be less, but the system is not capable to process it. If we take a SSIS, SSIS cannot process unstructured data. So unstructured data is a big data for SSIS. Okay, so like this, there are many things are there. Okay, if it is taking a day's time to process the data with SSIS, then people will never use, or people will not go and use it. So this was fine for 2 decades ago, 2 decade ago, but now it is not good. So as the data is increased, as data is having varieties of the data, then definitely we have to look forward. Okay, so Microsoft is providing various services to provide the solution for your big data. And Hadoop also is there, but Hadoop also is having some limitations. What limitations they're having? At the time of Databricks, we are going to see. But here I'm just talking about which service is there for from Microsoft to provide the solution for your big data. So let me talk about Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is one of the service which is used to provide a solution for your big data. Okay, so it will not provide a solution for your unstructured data, but it provides the solution for your structured data and semi-structured data. So what is the structured data and semi-structured data? We'll see at the time of data processing with the help of ADF. Now, as a data engineer, what we are going to do is the name itself suggesting we are going to process the data. So we are going to have a varieties of the data. We have a structured data, we have a semi-structured data, and we have a unstructured data. Okay, so when I say ADF will not provide a solution for unstructured data, it doesn't mean that there is no solution from Microsoft Azure. They have a other service. So Microsoft is providing a solution for all varieties of the data. So that is what I'm saying. Azure Data Engineering is not only with ADF. We have a collection of services. We have a combination of the services to provide the solution for your data. Now I'm just going to talk about what are the main role or what are the roles of Azure Data Engineer. So what we are going to do. There are two different major activities that we are going to do as a data engineer. Or as an Azure Data Engineer, there are two different activities that you are going to do. One is data ingestion and other is data transformation. These two activities only you are going to do. Along with that, data orchestration, you are going to do it. So when you automate this data ingestion and data transformation, that is what your data orchestration. We'll talk about it. So majority of the activities or majority of us is going to spend the time 80 to 90% of the time you're going to spend with only data ingestion and data transformation. If you know how we can do the data ingestion and if you know how we can do the data transformation, then that's all. You're a data engineer. So to do this data ingestion, we are going to use the Azure Data Factory. And if you wanted to do the data transformation, I can also use the Data Factory. But there are other services also is there in the market. We can use Apache Spark and we can use a Databricks and we can use a Fabric also. Okay, so for data ingestion, mostly people used to go for ADF. Okay, when they're going for Azure, 100% there is a ADF. In the olden days, we used to have a different tools like Scoop, different services were there. But when it comes to the Microsoft Azure, when you are going to work as an Azure data engineer, mostly we are going to use the ADF to go for data ingestion. So what do you mean by data ingestion? And what do you mean by data transformation? So data ingestion means the initial stage of working you're going to do, right? You have a data, basically, when you take any business, like if you take an example, Amazon, we're all going to order the products, right? When you order the product, customers are going to deal with the application. So based on the application, they're going to order a product. I mean, you also can make a transaction. I also can make a transaction. Someone also can make a transaction. So all the transaction details are going to store somewhere else. So that is what the OLTP system, online transactional processing system. So we don't care about how this OLTP was built and how it is getting the data from outside. Our entire life is how can we bring the data from the OLTP system is our responsibility. How we can read the data from the transactional processing system is our responsibility. Okay, so sometimes your data source may be your OLTP. And sometimes maybe some other systems also you can have it. In my experience, I used extensively OLTP systems as a data sources. So that means right from the beginning, you're participating in your ETL processing. So data engineers are going to do the ETL or ELT only. Your olden days is ETL. Now it is a ELT. So it's going to give more performance. So if my data source is a OLTP systems, or if my data sources are the databases, how we are going to extract the data from the databases is our responsibility. So in my case, I used the Oracle systems as a data sources. I used SQL Server as a data sources. If you know one database, that is more enough. If you know how we can work with the Oracle, or if you know how we can work with the SQL Server, you can work with any kind of RDBMS tools in the market. The only thing is connectivity. So once the connection is established, then it is controlled by your data factory only. And your data source may be file systems also. You may not pull the directly from OLTP system. You may pull the data, your team may be responsible for this particular place. Okay, so if you're not part of the data ingestion, then definitely you're going to take somewhere else. You're going to take data from somewhere else. So that is what you may have a data in the form of files in some different places. Or you may bring the data from the cloud to cloud also. From Azure to Azure also is possible, because if you see the second stage, the ADLS Gen 2 is the source and ADLS Gen 2 is the target. So that is what I'm saying. You can have a data for data ingestion also. So whenever you're going to start working any data pipeline, when you're creating, you have to understand what is your data source and what is your target. If you know that, then you can start building it. It's not immediately that you have to do the data discovery. and you have to understand the business logic and requirement. Then you're going to start doing the development. So analysis of the requirement is very important. We'll talk about it. This is too early to talk about implementation. So in order to extract the data from the data sources, or the process of taking the data from any sources, that we can call it as an extraction. So extraction is there from wherever the data was introduced. So right from the data, we were having an extraction in a different flavors. Here we are extracting the data with ADF. You may have if you are having experience with SSIS with traditional ETL tools, the traditional ETL tools also used to extract it. The only difference is they works only for structured data. They works only for less volume of data. But if you have a massive volume of data from decade ago, the data got increased like anything. They started increasing the data like anything. So because of that reason, many projects are migrating towards to the Azure data engineering projects, is because existed systems were not capable enough to provide the solution. From Microsoft itself, you can see this is a Microsoft tool only. I started my career with SSIS. It's a ETL. The same kind of features are available, but in a different, at higher and with more performance. So that is what the Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is used to extract the data from the data sources. And I'm not doing the transformation with ADF right away, because I have a two parts. The first part is the data ingestion, and the second part is the data transformation. If your data source is a databases, if you do the transformation right away, you cannot get the parallelism, because databases will not support parallelism. So because of that reason, we are going to do the data ingestion first. Then we are going to do the transformation, is because this ADLS Gen 2 is specifically designed for big data processing. This is designed for big data processing. So we'll talk about this ADLS Gen 2 and how we can use with the ADF. We are going to talk about it, and we'll see practically while executing this practically. Then I'm going to talk about the purpose of this ADLS Gen 2, and which is specifically designed for big data processing. It's a distributed file system. It's a distributed file system. Data is not going to sit at one place. The data is going to be distributed across the different nodes. So what is a node? What is a cluster? We'll talk about it. Just try to understand what we are going to do as a data engineer. And once the data is landed in the ADLS Gen 2, the second stage is going to be started. The second stage is a data transformation. This is very important. We can do the data transformation with the help of Azure Data Factory, but 5 to 10% only is using data transformation with Azure Data Factory. Then what we can use to transform this data? In order to do this data transformation, market is not yet ready to use with the Azure Data Factory. So market is already occupied. Market is already occupied with Databricks, or we can say Azure Databricks. By using Azure Databricks, we are going to do, I can say 10 to 90% we are having, not 10 to 90%, I can say up to 90%. So up to 90%, sorry, up to 90% we are having it, only Databricks. Either that may be Azure Databricks or AWS Databricks or GCP Databricks, or it's normal Databricks. Mostly the Databricks associated with the different vendors. I'll talk about it. Now Microsoft is started marketing Fabric. They wanted to avoid dependency on Databricks. So Databricks is what? Azure Databricks. Your Azure is dependent on the Databricks. So they avoided dependency and they started Microsoft Fabric. So Microsoft Fabric is also will also be used to do the data transformation extensively without depending on Databricks. However, the Databricks is going to work in the same way. This Fabric also is going to work to provide the solution for you. Okay, so I'll talk about a little more in detail when the time comes. So if I talk all these things, you will get a lot of confusion. For time being, you just imagine, in order to do the data transformation, at this point of time, market is using Databricks with 90% and 5 to 10% is with Azure Data Factory or Data Flow is there. So by using Data Factory, that people are doing. I don't recommend. If you come and ask me, can we use the Data Factory to do the data transformation? I personally interested with 0%, because I know
Lali, lali, lali. Lali, 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 lali. Lali, lali, lali.
1 minute.
Lali.
I'm sorry. Okay. So what happens here is we have a varieties of the things are there, but whenever you're going to get update, guys, you have to follow the market. Based on the market, you have to update. Okay, so if market is using Azure Databricks, first update with with Azure Databricks. Okay. At the same time, you have to think about the feature also, right? So feature, I'm sure, Fabric. Wherever the Microsoft projects are already existed for data engineering, I'm sure all those projects are going to, they're all going to come across the Fabric only. That is one thing. And if there is any brand new projects, if you have a brand new projects, those also going to be Fabric. You may have a question, why Fabric? Microsoft is ready to give a with less cost. They will give a benefits to migrate their projects towards to the Fabric. Okay, so I'll talk about all these details when the time comes. So Databricks is very, very, very important. If you don't know the Databricks, or if you don't know the Apache Spark, then you're not a data engineer. As simple as that. Okay, so as part of our sessions, we're going to cover extensively both of them. Azure Data Factory plus Azure Databricks. If both you know that, then only can work in a Fabric. So Fabric is also having other features also. We'll talk about it when the time comes. So the data transformation we are going to do in the second stage. In the data transformation also, people used to follow the medallion architecture. So what is the medallion architecture is? We are going to have a bronze layer, silver, and gold. So what does it mean? We'll talk about it. At the time of project, we are going to come across it. And we're also going to see CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration and continuous development. CI/CD, most of the people will never explain to move the code from a dev to testing and testing to prod, because your development environment is different, testing environment is different, and prod environment is different. So code movement, how we can move the code, whatever the development that you have done in the development phase, that you have to bring into the testing, that you have to bring into the prod also. So how exactly we are going to do that, we are going to see in our sessions. And I'm also going to cover the different types of loads. The different types of loads, we have a IL, incremental loading, FL, full loading. How can you decide to go with the incremental loading? How can you decide with the full loading? That we are going to discuss in our sessions. How we are going to implement it. So most of the people will explain about single table, but we are going to see for multiple tables. and how we are going to handle the exception handling. Exception handling, people will explain. I'm sure you can search for anywhere in the YouTube or anywhere. They're going to use the set variable activity and they will explain about your exception handling. But we don't only use set variable activities to capture to rise, we can use it, but they don't explain with the actual pipelines. They will just take a basic pipeline and they will explain about it. And even if you go for scheduling, that means triggers, they will take a basic pipeline and they will explain about the triggers. But the difference when you compare with the others, with me, we are going to say with actual pipelines. With actual pipelines, we are going to see how we can trigger it. So scheduling is important for everyone, how we are going to create a data-driven pipelines. Data-driven pipelines. So what does it mean? We are going to see. So data-driven pipelines, triggers, exception handling is very, very important for working point of view. And if you wanted to go for DP 700, of course, DP 203 is going to be expired this month end. So no more DP 203. And DP 700, you are going to have, if really wanted to go and clear the certification, I'll give a backups. I mean, dumps I'll give. You can go through, you can prepare dumps and you can attempt it. But working is not like that. If you clear the certification, it doesn't mean that you are ready to work. Working environment is, I feel, 80% is different when you compare with the certification. So certification is just for marketing point of view. Okay, but working is different. Okay, so that we are going to see. I've given here what is meant by data factory. I just gave some theoretical points. So data factory is a cloud-based integration service. By using data factory, we can integrate other services also. That means your Azure Data Factory can integrate your HD Insights, which is related to Hadoop, and your data factory can call your Python files, and you can call the notebooks. So notebooks means we are going to have in a Databricks. So how we can integrate your notebooks with data factory for orchestration, we are going to see that. And your data factory can integrate signups also, but signups is going to be deprecated, so you don't need to concentrate on the signups. And data factory can integrate SSIS in some situations, but 0 to 5% chances. But whatever the experience I'm having, I have a 7+ with data engineering. I never come across SSIS as part of the data factory. So I'll talk about it when we can go and use this SSIS environment. So at higher level, I wanted to say Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based integration service, which is used to extract the data from the various data sources and transforms the data as per your business requirement. We can transform with the directly data factories having a feature, but we never use that. We are going to use the notebooks to do the transformation. And we can also do the orchestration by using Azure Data Factory to move the data from source to target. So that is what the Azure Data Factory. So if you want to provide the solution for your big data, then you need to have a data factory. Now we should know how we can create a data factory for practicing. In real time, we are not going to be responsible to create. We are not responsible for any administration related activities. We're all going to do the completely development. We're going to do the development only. But for practicing, we have to do ourselves. We have to do our setup by ourselves only. So in order to do that, we need to know how we can log into the portal, from where we can take this service. So this service is completely managed service. So what do you mean by managed service means? Whatever the updates are there for this service will be taken care by cloud vendor, that is Microsoft, right? So Microsoft will take care about it. We don't have any control on the operating system. We don't need to install it. No installation, because this is there in the cloud. From the cloud, you have to take it. So in order to take this service, you need to have an account. You need to have an account in the cloud. So they're branding this service with the Microsoft Azure. So you have to take the service from the Microsoft Azure. The same service available in the Fabric also. Okay, so we'll see all these differentiations, and we are just in the starting position of the data engineering. So when the time comes, we are going to know about it. Now I wanted to create this service. First, I'll go and show you how we can create the service, and then I'm going to talk about the building blocks of a data factory. If I wanted to create a data pipeline, what are the prerequisites to create a data pipeline that we are going to see. Now let me show you how we can create a data factory. So in order to create a data factory, we have to use portal. We have to use the portal. Portal.azure.com. Portal.azure.com is used to go inside the Azure. Once you go inside the Azure, then it is going to ask you to sign in details. So since my login details already saved, so it is not asking, but basically it is going to ask you. So this is my account here, your account details, and this is the portal menu. You can navigate with the portal menu. I wanted to take the ADF, Azure Data Factory. So to take the Azure Data Factory, you can navigate to ADF from the portal menu, or you can use this particular place also. You can search about data factories. You can search about data factories here. And here I'm having here frequently user services. Since my account was already old account, so whatever the services that I used frequently, all the services it is pointing here. But you just imagine, I don't have the frequently used services here, then you can just go and search in this place. I go with this one. If you go with the portal menu, you need to have a navigations. I don't go in this particular approach. I used to go with the search, global search. So search for data factories. Here I have a data factory, just search for it. So once you started 1, 2 or 3 times, then you can see the frequently used items here. From then you can directly use this one. I'm just going to search for data factories. You can see. Just hit on the data factories. Now I wanted to create a data factory. So to create a data factory, I can use this create. What you are creating? I'm creating a data factories. So it's a service. You're trying to take the service to provide the solution for your big data. If I use this service for 1 hour, then you can pay for only 1 hour. Pay for 1 hour. You don't need to pay for more than that. That is the beauty of your cloud. But if you go for traditional services like Informatica or SSIS, you have to pay for 1 year. Pay for 1 year. Year-wise licenses. And if you take more number of years, then the cost may reduce. Okay, you may not use for 24/7 right? You may use for some point of time only. But still you have to pay for entire year. But when you come to the cloud, then whatever the time you used, for that only you're going to pay it. The cost will be less. So forget about all those things. We have to know how we can provide the solution with the data factory. So for that, we need to have a data factory. And I'm just going to create a data factory. To create this data factory, you need to have an account in the Microsoft Azure. I'll share a documentation to create a subscription, or I'll take you through on tomorrow how we can set up the subscription. Let me hit on plus create. Once I hit on create, it is asking few details here. So creation of the data factory is very simple. Creation of the data factory is very simple. But this will be taken care by administrators. We are not going to do in real time. If they ask, did you create a data factory? 100% say no. You know how to create it, but I did not create it. Because this is not your responsibility. Okay, so in my experience, I never come across it. So it is asking a subscription. Subscription means this is going to decide your bill, how much time you used it. If you use for 1 hour, that is going to be logged into this place. So subscription decides how much bill you are going to get it, or how much bill you got for your usage. So subscription is required, and resource group is required because you have to keep in a bucket. You have to keep all the services in the bucket. The bucket is a resource group. So here I'm just taking one of the service, that is a Azure Data Factory. You may go for ADLS. You can keep the ADLS in the same resource group. And you're going to take a Azure Databricks. We can keep in the same resource group. So this resource groups will be decided based on the ENV, environment. In our case, it is going to be decided based on the environment, like dev resource group, and QA resource group, and prod for prod resource group. So resource group, I'm going to create it while taking the service. I'm just going to create a resource group for this. Let's create a new. I'm just going to take the resource group here. Resource group 1. You can take any name. I'm just going to just hit on OK, and resource group 1 is created. And then the name of the data factory you have to provide. I'm just going to say ADF Bhaskar 123. I'm just taking the name of the data factory. So this is mandatory, and reason is also important. From where you're taking the reason, that is important for us. Wherever you're going to have a storage, that is ADLS Gen 2, in the same place, keep the data factory also, so that we can reduce the cost, we can improve the performance. The data will not move from one data center to other data center. So I always recommend you to take the nearest location. Since we are there in a different locations, so I'm nearest to Central India. So I'm going to take a Central India here. If you're nearer to East US or West US, then we can take the nearest location. So I'm just going to take my nearest location is Central India, because we are going to use our money, our amount we are going to spend, right? So Microsoft is providing a free of cost. So free of cost we are going to have here, but still free of cost we are going to get for 1 month. 1 credit card, 1 month. If you have a 2 credit cards, then you can use 2 months. You will get it. Okay, so but if you don't have it, then you have to go for pay as you go, paid subscription. So I have a paid subscription only. I'm spending here, I mean, daily we are using 2 persons. We are using this particular subscription around 6 hours minimum a day. I'm getting up to 1500. So you may spend up to 2 hours or 3 hours max to max. So if you can do practice with my guidance, I'm sure you will get up to 500 to 1000 only, not more than that. But you have to follow my instructions. Then only you can see the bill between 500 to 1000. Okay, but this month I'm going to get less bill only. So it depends. Whenever I'm going to deal with the data flow, there will be a slight increase in my bill. But spending a 500 or 1000 per month is not a big deal, right? For everyone, it's fine. Okay. So if you're having a credit card, then you can go for that. If you're not having it, then you can just use your paid subscription. Once you have provided these details, these are all the minimum details to create a data factory. Let me hit on review plus create. In the next option, there is a Git is there. So this is very, very important. We can use Azure DevOps Git or GitHub we are going to use. And I'm going to take you through this later. For time being, we just leave it at this point of time. Let's review plus create and hit on create. So data factory is going to be created. So once it is created, you can go to the resource. A resource means a service. Your data factory is a resource. Your Databricks is a resource. And SQL Server is also a resource only. Everything is there in the Microsoft Azure is a resource. Let's go to the resource. Now I'm there inside this resource group. And just see here, there is a data factory, which is located in central India. Let's hit on data factory. Then we need to launch the data factory studio. So once you create your data factory, you can launch the data factory studio from the portal, or you can also use portal.adf, Azure.adf, I guess. Azure.adf.com. You can go for this one to go directly to the portal. If they don't give a portal access, this is how we need to go and use it. Okay, so I'll show you both of them. Let me launch this data factory studio. Now this is a data factory. It opens in a different portal, you can see. adf.azure.com. Or you can directly go for adf.azure.com, because they don't give access directly to the portal for many people. If they don't give access, this is how we are going to access the data factory at the time of working. You may have access to multiple data factories. You have to take it, because there are 3 different data factories will be there for our environment. One is for development, other is for QA, and other is for prod. So 3 data factories will be shown in the drop down. You have to choose the required data factory. So we have just created ADF Bhaskar 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to take that. Just hit on continue. Then it is going to open the data factory. You can see it. So both are same. Either one of the way you can go. I just closed one of them. Now just observe here. I wanted to take you through the navigations of this data factory. The first button here, I'm having home. Okay, so we can ingest the data. I told you. We can transform the data, and we can orchestrate the data. Okay, so what we need to execute first and what we need to go for next. So the workflows can be designed from the data factory. And if you wanted to lift and shift your SSIS packages directly, then you can also go for this. So all the features they have just noted in the home. The next I'm having author, which is for 100% development. We're going to do the development with the help of this. With the help of this, we're going to do the development. So we'll see how exactly it is having it. The next one I'm having here is monitor. So job monitors can also be done with the help of data factory itself. You don't need to go for other place. If you go for traditional SSIS, we need to go for SQL Server agent to monitor the jobs. But here we have a directly inbuilt. This is one of the way to monitor it. And there is one more thing, that is a toolbox or manage we have. So this is going to be used to manage a few things. So what we can manage, we'll see that. So this is learning path. If you wanted to learn this data factory, then the Microsoft documentation you can find here. So this is briefly about it. This is the name of the data factory I'm having. And it is asking to set up the code repository. We'll talk about it, how we can set up the code repository. And if you go to the manage, what we can do with the manage? What are the building blocks of your data factory? So the building blocks of the data factory, everyone should know about it. Everyone should know about the building blocks of the data factory. So there are 50% of the chances are there. If I wanted to, they will give some requirement. And if I wanted to implement the requirement, can you tell me how you're going to start working on it? So to explain that question, to explain answer for that particular question, then definitely should know about the building blocks of your data factory or the major components of the data factory. Okay, so I'm having integration runtimes. What is integration runtime? Without integration runtime, you cannot run the data pipeline. If I wanted to move from one place to other place, definitely we require vehicle. If you don't have a vehicle, then you have to walk. Okay, so vehicle is required to move the data from one place to other place. That vehicle is nothing but integration runtime. It's a compute. Integration runtime provides a compute for your data processing. So we'll talk about this integration runtimes, then link services, data sets, activities, data flows, pipeline, and trigger. All these things are the blocks of your data factory. Okay, so we should know about it. Whatever the requirement you are having, the requirements are going to use most of the items. There are mandatory items are there. Okay, so if you ask me 100%, everything is required for us. Now let's talk about what is this integration runtime. And where we can set up this integration runtime is, I told you there is a manage. If you go to the data factory, under the manage, you can see I'm having what I'm having here, integration runtimes, IRs. So there are three different types of IRs I'm having. One is Azure IR, Azure integration runtime, and self-hosted integration runtime, and SSIS integration runtime. So three different 100% there will be a question. Without asking a question about it, 90% of the interviews will never miss. Definitely they're going to ask. Because most of the people will get confusion here. Most of us will be flexible with this one, but most of the people will get confusion here. Okay, so if I ask, where did we install? Because we have to set it up. We have to set up from our side. So this Azure IR will come directly with the data factory itself. By default, it will come. But some situations, if the situation demands, then we can also set up. We can also set up this in the Azure itself. The reasons are there. Why we need to
Bhaskar,
set
could you
up.
come again?
Yeah, let me say here, I have a integration, three different types of integration runtimes. This Azure IR will come by default when you created data factory. You created this data factory in a central India. You created this data factory in a central India. Just imagine you're having a data in the West US. Your storage is there in a West US. Then integration runtime also should be there in a West US. In that case, we are going to have a Azure Azure IR, we are going to set up again one more IR within the West US. I'll show you that later. Okay, for timing, we just concentrate our data factory created with the central India, and your Azure integration runtime also is available in the central India itself. So by default, it is there. So now the question is when we can go for Azure IR. When we can go for Azure IR, that I am just going to explain about it here. So as I said, integration runtime is nothing but a compute structure or compute power, which is used by Azure Data Factory to move the data from one place to other place. As I said, three different types of integration runtimes: Azure integration runtime, self-hosted integration runtime, and SSIS integration runtime. So we should know about each and every individual integration runtimes, but here SSIS integration runtime is an optional, and do not try to use this. It is very dangerous. And we don't get the projects, we don't use our entire SSIS stuff directly and bringing into ADF. Okay, so practicing also is very dangerous. I experienced one time. Okay, and in order to practice this, first you need to know about SSIS, then only you can understand how you can use it. But I don't recommend. Just understand why we need to go for SSIS for interview point of view. Now let's talk about Azure IR. As I said, when we are going to use this Azure IR is, it is used to bring the data from Azure data storages. Azure is having its own storage platform. Azure is having its own storage platform to store the data. So big data problem is what? When we are going to say big data is, if your system is not capable enough to store, we can say it is big data. If your system is not capable enough to process, then it is a big data. So that means Microsoft has to provide the solution for storage, and Microsoft has to provide the solution for process. For process, we have a ADF. For storage, we have a ADLS and SQL Server. So if you are going to use the native storage, if you are going to use the native storage to store the data or to read the data, to load the data and read the data, you can read the data from the storage and you can also write the data into the storage. In that particular kind of situations, we are going to use Azure integration runtime. So Azure integration runtime is used to read the data from Azure data storages. In the same way, if I wanted to load the data into Azure storages, because we have a data ingestion and we have a data transformation, right? For data ingestion, we are going to load it. For data transformation, we are going to read and write. Both will be there. So when we are going to actual implementation, then you can you can clearly understand it. But you just keep in mind, whenever your system is going to take the data from the data storages, I mean Azure data storages, we are going to use Azure integration runtime. In the same way, if you want to load the data into target, your target is again Azure data storages, then we are going to use Azure integration runtime. In these two places, we are going to use Azure integration runtime. So this Azure integration runtime comes with the ADF. By default, it comes with the ADF. Let me show you, then you can understand here. Let's see, when I hit on integration runtime, you can see here, by default, one integration runtime was created. What type of integration runtime it is? Azure integration runtime. And what is the purpose of this? Integration runtime is the compute infrastructure to provide the integration runtime. Okay, so to move the data, the integration runtime capabilities will be there. IR means it's a compute power, it's a processor. So that we are going to get. So by default, we have one Azure integration runtime. Without integration runtime, we are not going to have it. Okay, so at least one integration runtime will be there. If you want to add any new integration runtimes, then you can go for this. You can add it. We'll see that. The next integration runtime is The next integration runtime is self-hosted integration runtime. Without asking a question about this, majority of the interviews are going to ask about it. Self-hosted IR. If your data source is non-Azure storages, here is typo, non-Azure storages. If your data storages is non-Azure storages, then we need to use self-hosted integration runtime. So it is used to read the data from on-prem systems or non-Azure systems. Only for reading point of view only we are going to use this mostly. In my experience, I came across only for reading. Let's say if you are storing the data
Bhaskar,
into,
one question from me.
yeah, please.
Yeah, actually, we are working in a ERP system. The ERP system stored in their place only. So at the time, we have to use this self-hosted AI, right?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Even source is Amazon or SAP then.
Yes, in that case also we are going to use the self-hosted, other cloud systems. Okay. So in that particular place, we are going to use for writing, always we are going to take Azure data storages only. When you're working as a Azure data engineer, then definitely your target will be Azure storage. So for reading, we are going to use it. And to write the data, we can write into Azure storage with Azure IR. For writing, we are going to take Azure IR. So two IRs are required for reading one IR and for writing another IR. So where we are going to install this? That is the interview question. Okay, so wherever there is a data store, wherever there is a data source, there we need to install it. Okay, so you cannot install in your mission and you cannot connect to their systems. You have to install in their mission. In the source systems mission, we need to install it. So from there, we are going to access it. Okay, so how we can do setup of your self-hosted, because we need to install and set up self-hosted IR, then only can access it. We are going to see how we can access with different systems, different databases I'm going to use. And another integration runtime is SSIS integration runtime. This SSIS integration runtime, basically when we are going to use is, if you're already having a project with SSIS, SSIS is an on-prem system. It's not a cloud system. If you have a SSIS project, and if you wanted to lift and shift the entire SSIS project as it is, I have 100 packages here. All the 100 packages I wanted to lift and shift into Azure. That means into the data factory. So all 100 packages. In that case, if you want to run this 100 packages directly in the Azure data factory, then we required SSIS integration runtime, because to run the SSIS packages, SSIS software uses SSIS integration runtime. So SSIS packages can be run only in SSIS IR. So Java can be executed on JVM. They have their own runtime. In the same way, SSIS also has their own runtime. So that runtime capabilities are required, that we can get only if we have a SSIS IR. The cost is little more. Okay, so I don't recommend to run the SSIS packages, all the packages directly in Azure. Okay, so mostly they're going to redesign it. They're going to redesign the entire process into the data factory so that they can get the less price. The license cost will be less. So we are going to see that how we can do it. I mean, like there are many projects to migrate from SSIS, to migrate from Informatica. So migrate means it's not just by just doing some clicks, we are not going to migrate it. We are going to redesign it. So redesigning. We are going to redesign it. So this is about integration runtime. Is everyone clear with the integration runtime? Do you have any questions with integration runtime? 100% is there will be an interview question.
Bhaskar, I have one question.
Yeah, please.
Suppose on the same Azure, we have a virtual machine, VM, and we have installed the SQL server in the VM. So it is going to be considered as a on-premises, or is it going to be considered as a cloud?
Whatever is there out of your network, that will be treated as on-prem.
So we need to install the IR
Yes,
in the VM also.
yes. Okay, and the next thing we are going to have is link service. So link service is also is one of the building block, because link services are required from where I need to bring the data. So just take an example. When I was stayed in Chennai, when I worked in Chennai, I moved from Chennai to Hyderabad. So when I wanted to move from Chennai to Hyderabad, definitely we need to move our items. We are going to have items, right? So those items you need to move from your one location to another location. To move it, I consulted or I contacted with packers and movers. Most of you may be aware of it, right? Packers and movers. So they used to pack the items and they used to move the items from one location to other location. So when I call them, what they are going to ask in general is, they will ask from where to where we need to move it. So we have to give the source location and target location. That means source address is required. If you don't give the source address, then they cannot come to your location and they cannot pick the items. So that is one thing. Another thing is to deliver the items. To deliver the items, we need to give a target address also. If you don't give the target address, then they cannot deliver the items. They're going to have some vehicle, right? So they will come to your location, they will collect the items and they're going to target and they're going to deliver the items. So to collect the items by them, by packers and movers, you have to provide the address details. So address details is nothing but your link service. The link service is going to have your connection details, or we are going to have your data location details. Okay, so in the same way, the way you're going to have your address, in the same way, the data address also is required. So then only your data factory can understand, then only your data factory can go to that particular place and collect the data. So first of all, to collect the data, it has to go there. To go there, address is required. So that address details we are going to have in the link service. So connection details, we're going to have it. If it is a database, then database connection details. If it is a file system details. Or if it is a ERP, then ERP system details. So connection details are going to be there as part of your link service. Your source address details and target address details are going to be there here. Because you're going to move the data from one place to other place. When you're ingesting, you're reading data from some place and you're writing the data at some place. So that means we required a link service. Okay, so that is what I'm saying. It is used to have a connection details of the data source and target. So Microsoft Data Factory is providing two different types of connectors. For data, I have a connectors. For compute also, I have a connectors. So why I need to have a compute? If I wanted to run my SSIS package, then I need to have a, for SSIS, they have an inbuilt. But let's say, for example, if I wanted to run my notebook, so notebook cannot execute by data factory environment. We have to take the cluster from the Databricks. So compute is required. So compute connectors also we are having it, and data store connectors we are having it. So if your requirement is to take the data, then go with the data connectors. If a requirement is for compute, then take the compute connectors. You can feel that both of them I'm going to touch. On data store connectors, you choose to read the data and you choose to write the data. Both you can do with the data connectors. There are various different types of connectors we're having it. So Azure itself has its own data connectors, database connectors, file connectors, generic protocol, NoSQL, services and apps, different connectors we're having it. Just give me a couple of minutes, guys. I'll wind up. So if you see here link services, you can see link services defines the connection information to a data store or compute. So if you hit on new, you can see here I have a data store connectors and I have a compute connectors. So mostly we are going to have a data store connectors. So when I hit on this data store connectors, you can see data store, and when I hit on compute, and compute connectors are available. Let's go with the data store. In data store, I have a Azure related connectors. These are all the Azure related services, Azure related storages. And database related connectors, we have a Amazon Redshift, a DB2, Hive, MariaDB, MySQL, Oracle, SAP, PostgreSQL, Snowflake. There are many databases connectors are available. In the same way, we have a file related connectors. Amazon S3, FTP, Hadoop, HDFS, on-prem file system, SFTP. So like this, we have a different file connectors and generic protocol connectors. So if there is any database which is not having a direct connector, then you can use this ODBC connector. So REST API, HTTP, and NoSQL databases, we have a MongoDB, Cassandra, and services we have a Dynamic 365 and GitHub. There are many things are there. Okay, so I think ERP systems are there here. Okay, so you can take appropriate connector. So whatever the connector you require, that you have to take it. So all the connectors are available here. You can search the connector, depends on your requirement. So this is about connectors.
Connector that will address details from the source location.
Sorry, I lost your voice. Can you repeat again?
Connector that means your address from source location.
Yes, exactly. So source address details and target address details. And if it is a compute, if I wanted to run my Databricks notebook from the data factory, when you go for orchestration, then you have to take the compute from the Databricks. So because of that reason, we have a Azure Databricks. For compute also, we have a connectors for data store connectors. Mostly, we are going to concentrate more on this. And compute side, we are going to use the Azure Databricks. In our project also, we are going to see both together in a single project. So 99% of the projects are going to be there, especially with Azure Data Engineering. You will be having a Azure Data Factory plus Azure Databricks. Both will be there. So I'm stopping here. If you have any question, you can ask me.
Sir, one question.
Yeah, please.
Can you go to the diagrams, first diagram, flowchart?
This one?
Yes, sir. While we fetching the data from a database or a multiple source to, then you are moving it to ADLs directly. Why you are not transferring, sir, at first stage? Why you are bringing the data
good
from
question.
source to ADLS?
Yeah, because if I wanted to go for parallelism, that is not available in the data sources. And this is going to be there. This is designed for big data processing. If I process the data after reading data from here, then it will go for parallel. So
Okay,
why
sir.
it is? Because the data, let's say, for example, if you have a file data, employee.csv, the data is going to be divided into blocks. Okay, at the time of Databricks, I'll give little more details about it. So there is a cluster and blocks. Instead of doing a work with single person, if you go here, single person has to do it because the data is not divided into blocks. So I mean in this particular place. So if it is a cloud system, yes, you will be having it. But if it is not a cloud system, then definitely you have to store the data into the AWS Gen 2 first. From there, you are going to the data transformation. In the data ingestion, we never go for data transformation. All the data engineering projects follows the same kind of architecture. Okay. So
Yes.
how it is going to be like, the parallel processing, when we are going to talk about the Azure Databricks, then I'll give more details about it. Okay.
So in case if files are, if business is having file system, how the business will share the data to us, sir, in real time?
We'll talk about it. They're going to share
Okay.
in general, they're going to keep the data in the SFTP if they don't give access directly to the database. They may give a
Okay, sir.
direct access to the database, or they may give they will export the files and keep it in a SFTP. From SFTP, we have to bring it. So
Okay, sir.
both options we are going to see.
Yes,
Any-
sir.
So please go ahead. Go ahead,
Sir,
Max.
so in the ADF pipeline, can we use the notebook?
In ADF pipeline, yeah, we are going to see.
Notebook, that means it will connect with Databricks.
Yes, we are going to see that. It's very, very important. It's the heart of the data engineer. Databricks is the heart of the data engineer. If you don't have a Databricks, then we can just simply ignore it. So even if you wanted to clear the interview, if you wanted to survive, Databricks is mandatory. Okay, so anyone else? I'm just sharing one link. You just make sure to join that WhatsApp group. So if you can join in the WhatsApp group, then it will be easy to communicate. Just keeping in a chat box. You can please join in that community so that it is going to be easy for me to share the communication.
Bhaskar, could you drop the document in chat?
Yeah, you just share, you have to share your email IDs. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm going to give access to your email IDs.
Okay.
Okay, you will get the access.
14th
Okay,
of,
then. Yeah, please.
14th April, what did you take, sir? 14th April and 15th April. Sorry, 14th March and 15th March.
Your data factory completion, you're saying?
Yes, sir. 14th March.
Yeah. It will take 1 month to complete almost.
No, 14th March, what did you take?
You just ping me in offline, Chrysalis. I'm missing something. Ping me. So if you are having anyone wants to talk to me directly, this is my number. You can talk to me. You can also ping me in WhatsApp. Okay. Okay, then I'm stopping here. We'll see you tomorrow to implement our first data pipeline processing. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Bhaskar. See you.
See you.